Cypress Development Corp's flagship lithium project is located just east of Albemarle's Silver Peak mine in the heart of Clayton Valley, Nevada. A 12-hole exploration drill program for lithium-enriched claystone on Cypress's 100% controlled properties is now underway. Cypress Development Corp trades on the TSX Venture Exchange, symbol CYP, the Pink's CYDVF, and on Frankfurt's C1Z1. For more information, please visit our website, cypressdevelopmentcorp.com.
Welcome to the Goddard Report. Comments made on the Goddard Report and TalkDigitalNetwork.com are an expression of opinion only. Here is Jim Goddard.
My guest is investigative reporter Spencer Fernando. You can find his articles at SpencerFernando.com. Welcome back to the show, Spencer.
Good to be here.
Spencer, it looks like the Canadian political map is slowly but surely turning blue. The PEI election won by the PCs, although it's a minority government, and they'll have to have help from the Greens, just like the NDP in BC had to get help from the Greens to form a government. Is the country turning more conservative?
It seems like it. I think one of the big parts of the trend is that people seem to be voting against the Liberals whenever they have a chance. So the Conservatives generally benefiting from it. We saw the NDP benefit from it in BC, and the Greens obviously in the election last night in PEI. But yeah, the real trend seems to be people are rejecting the Liberals every chance they get, and especially as the carbon tax gets more attention, people are voting for parties that are against the carbon tax in most cases. Well,
in BC, you see it's the BC Liberals who introduced the carbon tax, and as we know, Canada's history, once they introduce a tax, they never take it off. Don't forget, income tax was introduced in 1917 to pay for the First World War, so I guess we're still paying for it.
Yeah, just a temporary measure.
Yeah, and only the very richest paid for it, only the top 5%. And now they're the people who don't pay any income tax. Now, with this blue wave, is there anything else behind it besides a tax revolt?
Well, I think a lot of it's opposition to Trudeau as well. I think people, they're not happy. He's broken a lot of his all of his promises, really. He's broken. He's obviously got his corruption scandals going on. And so, because people can't take their anger out during the federal election right away, because that still hasn't happened yet, they're taking it out, it seems, against Liberals in other parts of the country.
Yes, and of course we know economic circumstances quite often have nothing to do with the government, but Canada continues to be in an economic slowdown. Can that be attributed to the Trudeau government?
I think so, and I think the best way to tell that is by looking at what's happening in the States. Their GDP growth numbers have been consistently better. Their unemployment numbers have been consistently better. And usually Canada and the States should be moving in the same direction. So if we're slowing down and the States is still going strong economically, there's obviously a government component to that. And we just look at the comparison between the two provinces. I mean, it's much easier to invest in the States. Taxes are lower. Fewer regulations to worry about. They don't have a carbon tax, so it's really it's not a tough decision for people picking which place to invest in.
And RBC, Royal Bank of Canada, which is usually a pretty strong supporter of whatever government is or whatever party forms the government in Canada, their CEO was pretty bombastic and pointed out Canada has lost $100 billion with a B in lost energy projects over the last 2 years. How big of a blow has that been to the Canadian economy? And why has it happened?
Yeah, well, it's huge. I mean, it's tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of jobs when you add it all up together throughout the country. The kind of knock-on effects. It's money that can't be used for cutting taxes or for strengthening the military or for healthcare, education, infrastructure, all those things. So yeah, it has a huge impact. And again, it's, the world is still dramatically increasing the need for oil. So they're going to get it from somewhere. If they don't get it from Canada, they're going to get it from another country. And in those cases, those are countries with fewer labor regulations and fewer environmental regulations. So people talking about the environment, I mean, it's not going to get rid of oil. You're just going to get it from a place where they don't treat the environment as well as we do.
Right, and Ottawa has again pushed back their deadline for making any decisions on pipelines. Do you think they're trying to get people to forget about the whole issue?
I think so. I wouldn't be surprised if they try to punish Alberta for defying them as they would see it by voting for Jason Kenney. Trudeau has shown himself to be very, someone who would certainly try to punish people who don't do what he wants. So, I wouldn't be surprised if they're trying to back away from it. Jamie Carroll, former Liberal, I think party president actually, years ago, he just wrote an article saying that if he was advising Trudeau, he'd tell him to scrap the Trans Mountain Pipeline expansion and basically run against Jason Kenney and run against Alberta federally. So it seems like that's already kind of bubbling up in the minds of the Liberal government, and I wouldn't be surprised if they try something like that.
Well, isn't it true Alberta's about 10% of the Canadian population, but they provide about 28% of the country's wealth?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Albertans have every right to be angry because, the Quebec government, Quebec politicians tell them, pipeline is not socially acceptable to going through Quebec, but they seem very socially acceptable to take all of Alberta's money, the equalization payments. So that's very interesting. And, Alberta's really being taken advantage of. Their money's taken, and then their ability to create that money is restricted. So, they should be angry.
Yeah, what's the feeling about Montreal where, when I talked to Stuart Muir from the Natural Resources Network or Societies, he pointed out there were 5 Arab oil tankers tied up in the city of Montreal, yet they seem to be fine with that conflict oil because they're busy bombing Yemen, and they're okay with banning tankers on the West Coast.
Well, I think a lot of it is foreign-funded manipulation, really. You look at all the money that's coming to Canada. Vivian Krause has done great research on this. The money that's coming to Canada from foreign countries, particularly billionaires in the United States, to turn people against the energy industry in Canada, and unfortunately it has to a large extent worked. You see, if you look at maps of tanker traffic, there's tankers all over the world, and it's only in Canada, where on the West Coast there's tanker bans and protests, nothing on the East Coast. So it really seems in many ways like total disloyalty to the country, because you have our own sources of energy being attacked, and those same people aren't attacking foreign energy. So, to be honest, I'm not even sure why it's allowed, and I think they're going to have to crack down on it.
Quebec has a worldwide reputation for being a corrupt place to do business. Do you think the politicians are directly taking money from Arab oil interests?
I wouldn't be surprised to hear that at all. I think it's one thing that's interesting is, I think, to get a sense of how much corruption there is if you look at the polls in Quebec, Quebecers consistently say, the actual people of Quebec say they prefer to get oil from Canada, from Western Canada, from Alberta, than to get it from foreign countries. It's not even close. So Quebecers would prefer to have Canadian oil. But the politicians never do that. So whenever there's a huge gap like that between what people actually say they want and what the politicians deliver, that gap is usually being filled by corruption. And I wouldn't be surprised if things like that was going on.
And the reason we say well-proven corrupt, isn't it 3 Montreal mayors in a row were convicted of corruption?
I'm
or
not
at
sure
least
the
charged?
most recent one. I know there have been a lot of scandals.
The new female mayor hasn't been in trouble, but it seems that all the rest of the male mayors just line up and put the cuffs on them.
Yeah, I think, I think was it, the fellow former Liberal MP, I think he wasn't the mayor for too long there and he was defeated. So I don't know if he's been, charged with corruption. I don't think so. But, there's certainly, much of the power structure in Canada is centered around, a very small part of the country. And, SNC-Lavalin is a good example of that. And I think to many people, unfortunately, the elites, things that everyone else would consider corrupt, they just consider doing business. And again, I don't think that should be taken as representative of most Quebecers. I don't think most Quebecers are happy with corruption either. But unfortunately, the ruling class seems to view it differently, and they don't think they should be beholden to the rules that are applied to the rest of us.
Has Conservative leader Andrew Scheer been holding secret meetings with SNC-Lavalin?
He had been lobbied by them, but that was all disclosed. So I haven't seen any evidence that he's holding secret meetings. It'd be incredibly dumb if he was, especially with this scandal. That would kind of hurt his own ability to attack the government. So yeah, any meetings he had, it looks like they were disclosed by the lobbying group. And I know people have tried to say, oh, well, Conservatives and NDP also met with SNC-Lavalin. Yeah, but they're not the government, though. I mean, the issue isn't just meeting with a group. It's if you meet with them and then do something that they want when it's totally corrupt. And so that's the issue the Trudeau government's facing. I think they're trying to throw out other things and say, oh, everyone is just as bad, but I don't think that's working too well for them.
Would Andrew Scheer remove the deferred prosecution agreement article from the criminal code?
They haven't said that they're going to get rid of it entirely. I think what the argument they've kind of stuck to is that they would respect the independent prosecutor's office when the decision is made. And I mean, this is stuff we wouldn't even know about if the Conservatives hadn't been in power originally, because there was a law passed by Harper that made it possible for there to be some independence in deciding how to prosecute companies, as opposed to just outright political control. So yeah, I think the Conservatives would be different, especially now. I mean, they've done so much justified criticism of the Trudeau government, but if they turned around and acted the same way, then they'd be guilty. They'd be guilty in many people's eyes of just being hypocrites. So I think they have a lot of pressure to be more ethical and to actually live up to what they're saying.
Do you think one of the good things about the SNC-Lavalin scandal is that it shows you the kind of dirty inner workings that take place in high government offices?
I think so, and I think the one reason it's hurt the Liberals the most, I mean, every government seems to have scandals, but the reason this is so damaging is that Trudeau ran so explicitly on being different. He didn't say, I'm going to do politics as usual and it's going to benefit you financially. He said, no, we're going to be totally different. Total and new politics, sunny ways, most open and transparent government ever. And so then he turns around and has all these corruption scandals. So you can't campaign differently than everybody else and then act the same way, because then you're obviously, vulnerable to accusations of corruption. I think that's why his image is taking such a big hit, because it goes completely against the way he promoted himself.
Spencer, BC's chief medical health officer is saying that minor possession of drugs should be decriminalized to help fight the overdose thing. And as I just pointed out off air, 10,000 Canadians have died from opioid overdoses. We lost 5,000 soldiers taking Vimy Ridge. So 2 Vimy Ridges have happened in Canada, and it continues with no solid policy that might stop it. And I believe one of the reasons why people are still overdosing is they don't want to get busted if they call for help to get a friend assisted by paramedics, because often the police arrive along with them. Is it time to decriminalize minor possession so that people aren't scared to call for help?
Yeah, well, I think, the way I look at it is I don't like the people or the idea of decriminalizing where people are able to sell it. I don't think that's good. But I think in a situation where people selling drugs and try to get people hooked, that should be criminal. They should be charged and jailed. In cases where someone has a small amount, I think putting someone in jail when they have a serious drug addiction, not the best idea. So I don't know if I call that decriminalization, because I think then you get to the point where, people think, they can just go and sell it, which should never be allowed. But in terms of people who have an addiction, can get help, I think they should be given the help they need. And again, one of the problems is governments seem very worried about ever confronting the pharmaceutical industry. You see in the States now, there's some lawsuits of these companies. I think in West Virginia, they sent a gigantic amount in just 4 years of OxyContin and other opioid pills, and there's a huge epidemic of people dying in West Virginia and parts of the States. These companies, they knew what the effect was. They knew people were going to die. They knew people were going to get addicted, and they just cared more about profit. So I think one of the real solutions has to be punishing those companies, punishing the CEOs, and then getting help for people who have an addiction and want to seek help.
We'll have more with Spencer Fernando right after this.
Arctic Star Exploration, operated by a team of proven mine finders, is focused on diamonds in Finland and the Northwest Territories of Canada. Work programs are underway in Finland and Canada. Arctic Star trades on the TSX Venture Exchange symbol ADD, on Frankfurt symbol 82A1, and the OTCQB symbol ASDZF. Please visit our website arcticstar.ca or call us at 604-689-1799.
Grand Portage Resources recently completed the 2018 drill program on its 100% controlled Herbert Gold Discovery property located in the prolific Juneau Belt in southeast Alaska. Drill results are expected through late 2018. Past drill results included numerous multi-ounce gold assays on multiple veins. Grand Portage trading symbols are GPG on the TSX Venture, GPTRF on the OTCQB, and GPB on Frankfurt. For more information, please visit our website, grandportage.com.
Welcome back. We're speaking with Spencer Fernando. Spencer, we have the Trudeau government imposing carbon taxes on provinces that didn't have them. Is there another petrochemical-related tax about to come down the pipe?
Yeah, there's a report today, Blacklock's reporter, bringing attention to the government pushing for a plastic tax now. That's the new one they're trying to get going. So, yeah, I mean, I've said many times before, it's never going to end, right? It's always one tax, and then it's another tax, and then a new tax, and it's all about taking money. So, yeah, it's not going to stop. And, yeah, I mean, again, as I said, the only way to stop the taxes from increasing is to defeat the Trudeau government, because they're not going to, I mean, they're going to keep pushing for more and more taxes, take as much money as they can from us. And it's, I mean, they'll find whatever excuse they need. I mean, it's, as you said, as you talked about before, it's World War I. Oh, we need a temporary tax to pay for it. Still happen. Oh, it's climate change. Oh, now it's going to be something else. So, yeah, it's not about the excuses they use. It's actually about the fact that they just want our money.
What about the optics of the Trudeau government giving Loblaws $12 million when it's owned by the third richest family in Canada?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, that wasn't well perceived, understandably. Again, yeah, it's obviously this whole thing is a big scam. They're trying to look like they're doing something and use that as an excuse for just taking money. And, yeah, they're giving it to a company, I mean, yeah, $12 million to a company that easily could afford to get more environmentally friendly fridges if they wanted to. They don't need government money to do that. So, yeah, I mean, at some point.
And wouldn't it have more impact on the environment if the average person was given a rebate to upgrade their fridge to be more friendly to the environment?
You'd think so, but again, I mean, you're looking at it from a common sense point of view, as if the government actually wants to do something about the environment, and they don't. They just want to take more money, and then they want to, reward their fellow elites. I mean, that's the other thing about it is Trudeau spent his life moving in elite circles. These are the people he knows. These are the people he's friends with, and that's who he wants to reward. So that's what he's doing.
What's happening with the People's Party of Canada?
Well, I mean, it seems like they're going through some growing pains, certainly. People either, in some cases, leaving or infighting. That tends to happen a lot for new parties, but it's a challenge for them. I mean, I think the SNC-Lavalin issue has been very bad for them because it has kind of the media, when there's a scandal, gets into okay, what did the government say? What did the opposition say? What did the government say? What did the opposition say? So that's obviously harmful to other parties, especially small parties, because they don't get much attention. And I think there's really the vast majority of Canadians have turned against Justin Trudeau, and there's just a common sense aspect of saying, okay, if you want to beat Trudeau, look at the party who has a chance of beating him. The only party right now in any poll that has a chance of beating him is the Conservative Party. So if people want to beat Trudeau, then the logical move, I think a lot of people are saying, is vote Conservative, because that's the only party that can beat him. So I think that's also hurting the People's Party. And, again, they only have one seat, so limited resources, limited media attention. It's not really a novelty anymore. It's been around for a while, so it's not kind of the big new political story. And, yeah, it's a challenge for them.
Andrew Scheer said that he would get rid of the legal pot law. Do you think he'll do that?
No, he backtracked very quickly. I think it was like a few hours or at most a day after he said that, he backtracked and said he wouldn't get rid of it. So yeah, that was not well perceived. That's an issue that's tough for the Conservatives in many ways because it splits the Conservative Party. So a lot of more libertarian Conservatives don't want to see pot made illegal. A lot of people just think it's such a waste of money to have it legal and then go back again, when most likely, whenever the Conservatives down the road lose, it would be made legal again. So I think most people want to move on from it. If anything, I think there needs to be more of a free market approach to the legal pot issue. We've talked before What how they closed a bunch of dispensaries. And that's an absolute disaster. I think should have just let stores that were already selling it in a medicinal capacity keep selling illegally.
Well, 7 months 7 months after pot was made legal, Vancouver has 2 legal stores. A city of 3 million people.
Yeah, it's a total joke. And only the government could somehow lose money selling drugs to people. So, yeah, it's pretty embarrassing.
We'll have more with Spencer Fernando right after this.
Hi, I'm Douglas Mason, President and CEO of Magnum Gold Corp, MGI and the TSX Venture Exchange. A 2015 drill program on the LH property intersected several high-grade gold intersections, including 11 meters of 20.66 grams per ton gold. Additional drill targets on the LH property have been identified by a 2018 drone airborne magnetic survey to further evaluate a pyrrhotite-enriched gold-bearing system. Please visit our website at magnumgoldcorp.com.
Don't miss out. Stay informed. Receive the HowStreet.com weekly recap with thought-provoking podcasts, radio, and articles delivered to your inbox. Sign up for the HowStreet.com weekly recap on our homepage at HowStreet.com.
Welcome back. We're speaking with Spencer Fernando. Spencer, is it true there was a fake anti-Semitic attack in Winnipeg?
Yeah, it's allegedly fake. It's all signs are pointing to that. The Burmax Cafe in Winnipeg, they had, like I said, there was an attack on a woman and then anti-Semitic graffiti. People, understandably as they should, anti-Semitism should be denounced, so the community was, reached out and, was very supportive and was going to hold, a vigil, interfaith vigil. There's a GoFundMe page even set up based on a previous attack that had apparently happened there. But now the police have arrested the 3 owners of the cafe and said, a crime was committed, but it looks like it wasn't a hate crime, and they say they're going to be facing charges. So, all signs are pointing towards a Jesse Smollett-style fake hate crime.
Is it true there's a Stanford University study that says Canada's GDP is up 32% due to climate change?
Yeah, it's two Stanford professors. I think one of them a geoscientist. Did a study, and it's been criticized by some people, but I just found it interesting because they claim that for some countries, GDP has gone down because of climate change compared to the baseline. So India, Brazil, Nigeria all had lower levels of economic growth. But for Canada, apparently over a 30% boost to our GDP from climate change. So, and the reason I find it interesting is because Catherine McKenna is basing her whole Trudeau government carbon tax on, climate change is way worse than expected. They did that report conveniently the same day the carbon tax comes out. Federally, they have a new report that says, climate change is twice as bad in Canada as the rest of the world. And then, they're using that to justify saying, it's going to cost us billions. So, and McKenna always says, the scientists completely agree that everything she does is based on science. But here you have 2 seemingly credible scientists at Stanford University. Stanford, obviously not a right-wing hotbed, saying that Canada has actually benefited dramatically from it. So the real point is whether that study is accurate or not, because scientists are still debating and arguing about all this. But whenever McKenna says, the debate is settled, everything I say is justified by science, she's obviously just lying.
Well, also, too, Canada produces roughly 1% of the world's greenhouse gases. It doesn't matter what Canada does, whether we do anything or not, when it comes to worldwide influence, and if all these gases are coming from the U.S., China, Russia, and India, what influence does Canada have anyway? And again, when they said Canada has seen the most climate change, no one ever said whether it was good or bad.
Exactly, and I think if you take it like common sense, if Canada hypothetically becomes more like the climate becomes more like the Midwest of the United States, that would benefit us economically. The U.S. Midwest is one of the most economically productive regions because of their climate. So if Canada becomes more like that, then it's just common sense that our economy would get a boost. And whether that's even happening or not, but if you look at, I think what happened is a lot of people are falling for propaganda. A great example is with China. you see people, so Trump doesn't sign, or Trump takes the U.S. out of the Paris Accord. He gets attacked. Oh, Trump's destroying the environment. The U.S. is wrecking the environment. Well, emissions are still down in the United States, in large part because of technological innovation. It's a very innovative country, so people, without government telling them what to do, people find ways to reduce emissions by embracing new technology. So emissions are down in the States. Meanwhile, China always gets a lot of credit. People, oh, wow, they're making people use electric cars. Oh, they're investing record amounts in solar. Yeah, but they're also building, I think it's about 900 coal power plants around the world. That never really gets talked about. So instead of looking, ironically, the people who say they're all for science don't actually look at the numbers, where, the States is reducing emissions. In past years, Canada has been reducing emissions without a carbon tax. And countries like China, India, where emissions are surging, Pakistan, where tons of coal plants are being built, they say, oh, well, they're doing such a good job, making such great investments. So, yeah, I think people should actually just look at the numbers and stop falling for propaganda.
Yeah, it's something like 60% of the world's efforts to combat greenhouse gases are happening in Canada, a country that produces 1%.
Yeah, it's amazing that, like, this isn't just, like, laughed at, really. It's crazy. And it's destructive, and we're making our own country poorer and doing nothing to fix the problem we claim to be trying to fix. So I'm not really sure what's up with that. It doesn't seem like it's too effective.
An Ipsos poll says 48% of Canadians believe they're on the edge of bankruptcy. What does that say about our economy and the people in control of it?
Yeah, well, it says we have an economy that's, one bad week from a disaster. It's a lot like what we saw in the United States. Some of the circumstances may be different, but when you have an economy and our debt levels are actually, household debt levels are worse in Canada than they were in the States before the economic crisis there. So, but we have an economy where, just one little thing can make things very bad. The States, their economy looked fine, and then all of a sudden it wasn't fine, and then all of a sudden they were facing a huge disaster, and they're still feeling the effects from it. Some parts of the country still haven't recovered. So, yeah, I think it's very concerning for Canada, and this is why things like the carbon tax are such a mistake, because people who are barely on the edge and can barely afford to make ends meet, any little bit counts. And so if you take a little bit more money and make everything more expensive, well, then you have to cut back on a purchase, because either you're paying more for something else or you have to pay down your debt. But that purchase you don't get means maybe a company has to fire a worker. That worker's now not in the economy. So that's how, things can cascade and fall really quickly. And the Bank of Canada today says they're not going to be raising interest rates for a while. They cut the economic growth projection, and the trends are all now looking good.
Spencer, thank you so much for chatting with us.
Yeah, it's good talking to you.
My guest has been investigative reporter Spencer Fernando. You can find his articles at spencerfernando.com. If you have any questions for Spencer or any of our other guests, you can send them to info@howstreet.com. I'm Jim Goddard. Thanks for listening.
Comments made on the Goddard Report and TalkDigitalNetwork.com are an expression of opinion only. The Goddard Report is available online and mobile at TalkDigitalNetwork.com. The Goddard Report is a production of How Street Media Incorporated.